am really excited about this new series that we're launching into today. It's a 5-week series that we're going to do for the rest of the season of Easter. Now, y'all know that, right? Easter's not just a day, it's a whole season. The resurrection isn't something that happens just once. It's something that we continue to live into in our daily lives, on and on and on. And so over the next 5 weeks, we're doing this series that we're calling Fruitful. And we're going to go over 5 practices that we believe can help us lead more deep and meaningful lives, help us grow in our faith, help us live into what it means to be resurrection people, to live more fruitful lives. 5 practices. Today we begin with the practice of radical hospitality. Now, some of you who have been in leadership meetings with us for a couple of months, you've been hearing me prime the pump saying those 2 words, radical hospitality. Radical hospitality. We're going to talk about these practices, and I hope that what they'll do is sort of get down into us and shape us as individuals, but also shape us as a church. Think of it this way. You know how you're in your house and you can be looking at the yard, but if you do it through 2 different windows, it looks a little bit differently. I mean, you can see a different perspective based on which window you look through. Same yard, just 2 different perspectives. So on the one hand, we'll look at these practices through our personal lives. What does it mean to live these practices on a daily basis as individuals? On the other hand, the other window we'll look through is what does it mean to bring these personal lives into the life of the church and have these practices shape us as a community of faith. To write the DNA of Trinity Church, these 5 practices could be a big part of doing that. So radical hospitality, we begin today. Now, some of you may have an idea of what at least some of that means, radical hospitality. You separate the 2 words, you know what they mean. Radical means, one thing, hospitality another. So here's how I would define it. Let's ease into it. Hospitality, we're Savannah, right? We are the hostess city, so we know something about hospitality. Hospitality you could define as a gracious spirit of welcome. It doesn't matter what angle of the hospitality business you're in, that's essentially what you're doing. Whether you're serving food, whether you're a hotel, it doesn't matter. Whether you're an Uber driver, you are offering people a gracious sense of welcome. That whatever it is that they're engaging with you on, that they enjoy the experience. That's hospitality. Christian hospitality has a unique bend to it. You could define Christian hospitality as the invitation, welcome, receiving, and care for others. But here's the kicker on Christian hospitality. Lest we become an inwardly focused community that it's all about us and our people, Christian hospitality is always pointed outward. So you receive, you welcome, you care for others, especially those who are strangers. Strangers to us, strangers to the faith maybe, so that anyone who comes to engage in the life of the church, they come to experience God. But in doing so, they experience it with a gracious sense of welcome. Now, radical hospitality. It's doing all of that. A gracious sense of welcome, receiving, inviting, receiving, welcoming, caring. It's doing all of that above and beyond expectation. That's where the radical part comes in. It's one thing to be a nice person. It's another thing, think of that person who's the warmest, friendliest person in your life. That person that you feel better just for having interacted with them that day. That person is offering you radical hospitality. They go above and beyond expectation of what you would normally receive from people who engage with you. And likewise as a church, it's more than being a friendly church. It's about going above and beyond expectations so that someone who is new, especially someone who is new, comes to church and says, wow, I've never been received more warmly than I was today by a church. Radical hospitality, that's the what. So now we say, well, why? Why do we need to engage in radical hospitality? What benefit do we have in sharing in radical hospitality? From a personal standpoint, it is to love others for the sake of simply loving them. So often, we don't realize this, in our relationships, there's a utilitarian value to relationships. We care for others, but we also like how they can benefit our lives. But to show them radical hospitality is to just love for, as a mentor once told me, to love for the sheer joy of loving. No strings attached, not for what they can do for you, but just to love. Or maybe to go about your daily life and engage strangers in a gracious, warm way that may even surprise them. Like striking up a conversation in the to-go line. Or just greeting your mailman. Or the simplest way of engaging a cashier. Paul writes in the book of Hebrews, you never know if that one moment you have not encountered an angel. Or better yet, that person that you share that radical hospitality, that love with, you never know what they're going through in their life. And that one moment that you offered a sense of love and welcome, even if it's just a quick exchange, that could have been the brightest moment of their day. And you offered a gift. How can you live your daily life seeking to give gifts of love and hospitality away? Would that reshape the way you live your daily life? I mean, so much it's kind of focused on us, what we have to do, what we have to accomplish, what we have to, check these things off the list. What if we were to turn it outward, away from us, and start thinking, how can I do all these things, but do it where the folks I come into contact with feel better for having met me today? Or how can I approach this relationship in my life? And instead of grinding them, hey, I need you to do these 5 things, or have you done this? To just remember why you love them in the first place. And to share that love before all the to-dos and the task and all that other stuff. That's the personal why of radical hospitality. But let's look through the window as a church. Why do we offer radical hospitality as a church? I think it is something that is desperately needed in our day and time. It's always been needed, but I think especially now, as people's suspicions of the church grows, as people continually have bad experiences of church. I mean, I hate to admit it, I've been a church person my whole life. Sometimes it seems like Christians can be uniquely mean and ugly and judgmental. And good, decent people go to church with an openness to God, and they encounter something different. Meanness and judgment and harshness. And we do it, I don't know why we do it. I mean, some of it is we think we're holy already, and so that we put an air of holiness to our meanness. Or maybe we just enjoy being right more than we enjoy loving people. We'll argue to death on an issue, you name it. We'll be there. This is what God thinks of this. Never mind the fact that God calls us first to love, even if we don't agree. We offer radical hospitality as a church because we're reminded through the miracle of resurrection that when we offer hospitality in this radical sense to others, we are inviting them into new life with God. And I have met more people in my life who have been turned off and hurt by the church than I care to even count. What a miracle it is when a highly suspicious person who's been hurt by the church could find a different experience of church. What a gift it is. Y'all know it's not an accident that I throw into the announcements and the passing of the peace. Don't just get up and greet one another, but make sure you meet somebody new and introduce yourself. Why? Because human nature says that we're all going to just talk to our friends. I don't want you to talk to your friends. Get here 5 minutes early. Stay 5 minutes late. You can talk. Go to lunch. I want you to seek out the stranger. I want you to find the person sitting alone. I want you to find the person who you can tell all over their face they're unsure of what to do next, and this is a foreign place for them. I want you to be a beacon of light and hope and love. That in the simple exchange of, hi, my name is, I'm so glad you're here. You have no idea what kind of gift that could be to a new person. Radical hospitality. To dare to love others for the sheer joy of loving, to be the church that Christ calls us to be. I hope, some of you may not have, but if not, we can get you on the way out. But I hope you received one of these stickers from a couple of very sweet little girls out front who are very good at carrying out tasks. These stickers have on them a logo. This is our new church logo. And we had an email thread of a task force that I think stretched into about 100 emails to get this just right. It was painstaking, but I'm so excited about it. We're going to see more and more of this logo around social media, around different things. But I want to tell you a little bit about it. So we decided to form this Radical Hospitality Task Force. And one of the many things that we're tackling this year is that we wanted to rebrand. Now that's a marketing term. But what we wanted to do was to update our image through a logo. Now, this is a way of telling a story to the community that doesn't already know us. So if you take a look, for those of you who have one, take a look at your sticker. By the way, these are weather resistant if you want to stick them on your cars. I hope that you can recognize those big red doors that are so characteristic to the front of Trinity Church. You see the steps and you see the sign that would be over them. And I hope that you notice, and boy, we nitpick this one to no end to get it just right. Doors that are wide open. Now, what we decided early in this process, before the artistic end came into play, was that those doors were a characteristic because they stick out. You just know Trinity when you see those red doors from Telfair Square. But the wide open doors speaks to the spirit of welcome that we strive to offer as a church. And on our best days, we live into this. That at Trinity Church, absolutely everybody is welcome. No strings attached. We don't check your checking account before you come in the door. We don't have a dress code. We don't ask you your background. We don't care what gender you are. We don't care who you're in relationship with, who God calls you to love. We don't care. Because you're a child of God. You were made in the image of a good and loving God. So we hope that this sticker tells that story. We want you to put it in places that others may see and say, hey, what's that? Or stick it on the back of your car and somebody at a red light catches it. We do give a little directions on Telfair Square since 1848, just in case someone wants to come here. Now, this isn't a marketing ploy. It kind of is, but it's not fully a marketing ploy. It's a way of telling others, I love my church. I'm proud to be a part of a church that welcomes all people. Because there are churches in this world, in this town, that don't welcome all people. But we are confident that this one does. Now you think about the two windows. As a church, we welcome all people, but we don't do that by accident. Each one of you, we're all in varying degrees, but each one of you come here, and we put this up front. So the assumption I have is, as your pastor, that you are someone who is drawn to a church that is welcoming. You seek to welcome others in your life. And you want to be a part of a church that does too. So the challenge we face in the coming weeks as we live into these practices is, how are we going to be deeper and lead more meaningful lives? How are we going to be shaped by these practices to be the people that Christ calls us to be? And today we begin with radical hospitality. In this next week, how are you going to live your life in a way that shares God's love with others? How are you going to approach the relationships that you have on a daily basis? How are you going to approach those chance meetings with a random stranger? And how are you going to share God's love with them? That in what you say and what you do, you don't have to word it this way, but there's just something about you that tells them, wow, that's what God's love looks like. And as a church, how are we going to continue to do that? One of you gave me this image early on when I first came that I love and I keep coming back to. But the idea is this image of a welcome mat. And one of you said, we do a good job of putting a welcome mat at that back door inside so that when you get in here, you know that you're welcome at Trinity Church. And that's a good thing. But this person said, how could we put the welcome mat on the outside of the door? so that you don't just have to come in to experience welcome, but you know it before you ever get in here. That everybody's welcome, that everybody's loved, that everybody's honored, that everybody carries precious value, not because of the way you dress, the way you look, or any of that other stuff that we put up, but because you are a child of God. I love the image of the open doors. I almost want to imagine how far we could stretch those hinges. Now, I've got Chair of the Trustees looking at me. I don't mean physically, I mean figuratively. How far can we stretch the hinges of those doors that absolutely everybody feels welcome in the life of this church, is embraced by somebody who knows what it feels like to be a stranger, who knows that they were once welcomed and want to pass that gift along. Man, if we start living into that kind of stuff, that truly would be radical. Amen.